Hello everyone and welcome to our remote learning webinar number 5, Teacher Collaboration in Microsoft Teams. My name is Troy Waller. I'm a learning delivery specialist from Microsoft Australia Education. I have the really amazing job of moving around the country and sharing the awesomeness that is Microsoft Education and all the cool things that you can do. Unfortunately, in this current climate of remote learning and blended learning, because of what we're sort of facing as individuals and as schools and as states, etc. I'm able to be with you here now and talk to you about the way that this could be used in this sort of negative time. But I think you'll be quite surprised and hopefully quite pleased at the amount of stuff that you can actually do and the things that you can actually achieve using some of these tools. This is, as I said, the 5th webinar in our series of 6, sorry, 8 actually is what we're doing. And so you can go back and check those earlier webinars if you want, and I'll share a link with you how to access those a little bit later on. This is our landing/launching page for everything Microsoft Education Australia around remote learning and also blended learning as well. So remembering, that right now we're certainly away from our students, but soon there'll be, possibly a hybrid model that we'll have to adapt for those that do come, for those that don't come when we're back on our school sites. But there again, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. Please jump in and have a look at the stuff that we've got in there for you. So our webinar agenda today, a little bit different to some of our earlier webinars, which are very much about using this stuff with your students. This today is all about using Teams as a school or using Teams as teachers and educators to collaborate. So whether we're talking about principals, vice principals, teachers, learning support officers, groundskeepers, all kinds of stuff. It's all about bringing that community of school staff together. So we're going to go in and have a look at how we create our school team. We're going to look at channels and how channels work. We're going to look at posts, files, tabs and apps. We're going to share how to manage your team, looking at notifications and then Teams meetings, and then we'll look at next steps and we'll see how we go for Q&A. Now there is a Q&A active at the moment, so you'll see a little Q&A button floating around on your screen there. You can actually click on that and type in your questions, and we've got real people on the end who are there to answer your questions for you. So this is the Microsoft Educator community, education.microsoft.com. I'm going to take you in and show this to you. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week, and if you're watching this as a recording, I hope you enjoyed Teacher Appreciation Week. Here's our Educator community courses. So we have groups of courses here. If you click down here on Browse Courses, you'll see we've got a series of courses, and they really come at you from an education perspective, because that's what this is all about. These are not just walkthroughs of product, it's about how to use the Microsoft stack inside your school. But there's one in particular I want to show you. It's actually a higher ed course. It's called Collaborate Faster Using Microsoft Teams for Higher Education Staff. Really, I don't know why they branded it that way, because it could be quite relevant to all of us in K-12 settings, TAFE settings as well. But it's a 1-hour course, and I just want you to, and I'll share this link with you later, but I just want you to take note of this, because a lot of what we're looking at today is actually built into this course here. So even though it's higher ed, you can go back and look at it. But when you sign in to this website, you just use your school email address and your password to sign in, okay, to create an account. So remember, just use your school ID, and then you can come and go from these courses, at your own pace. But when you finish, it will actually deliver to you a record of 1 hour's worth of PD. Now, the cool thing about these courses is they are recognised by the TAS TRB, Teacher Registration Board, because they meet the AITSL standards. So you can hit your PD requirements by doing these courses, okay? So in particular this one, but I just wanted to show you what they look like. Now, the other thing we've got is we've got groups of courses put together in what's called a learning path. So I'll show you this one here. So for example, if I was to look at courses on, or learning paths on Teams, you can see here that we've got Teams courses embedded into all these different learning paths. So one, for example, Office 365 Teacher Academy, which is great if you're starting out with Office 365 and with the Microsoft stack. But you can see here it's a group of courses and it's almost 12 hours worth of PD. And you can see down here you've got courses starting off with the apps and workforce ready skills, and then courses around teams. Supporting learning initiatives with staff teams is actually quite a good one as well. So you can see that those courses, they're all roughly 1 hour each. You can come and go at them at in any order you want. However, we have built them in this way, in this linear way, that one builds on the, the content of another. So that's what the learning paths look like. The other thing that we've got is your achievements. So it records everything that you do. There is a printable PDF that you can download, which will have all your learnings and all your engagements with this website. So if you do get audited or you need to demonstrate your professional learning to somebody, you can do that in there. All right, so that's our educator community, and I hope you get in there and explore a little bit of that. Okay, so jumping into Office. We talked about this in our previous webinar, so I'm not going to harp on it too long, but www.office.com is where you go to get into Office Online. Different to Office installed on your machine. So we're not talking about the desktop apps, whether you're on a Mac or a PC or an iPad, you've got dedicated apps. These are not those. This is where you go to get the access through the browser, whether you're on an iPad, a Mac or a PC, that's fine. As long as you've got a browser, you can access these tools through your browser. And again, you just sign in. When you come to office.com, you'll sign in using your school email address and password, okay, your department TASI DoE credentials, and you can sign in because you've already got an account set up for you. All right, so when you do that, you'll come to this page again, this office.com. Now I'm going to take you into a live version of that because I want you to see what it looks like. So here we are. It's going to reload for us. There we go. So you can see here that I've got all my apps. I've got things like Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. And I can be accessing them from in there. Now, please go back and watch our previous webinar on Office 365 to learn all about the cool things that you can do in this space. So, but that's what it looks like. Now, I'm going to take you into this slide here because I want to talk to you really quickly about Teams. I'm going to assume that most of you have watched our first webinar, which is all about using Teams with your students. But if you haven't, pay close attention because here we go. So Teams is a hub. Everything is connected. So we bring as much as we can of our Microsoft experience and also other apps, third-party apps away from Microsoft, bringing those together into Teams. So the first thing that we can do is we can make calls. Video calls and voice calls can happen through Teams. We've also got the ability to chat. And then we've also got the teams themselves, which is going to become more apparent to you a little bit later. We can bring in our Office 365 apps, okay? So the apps that we know and love like Word and Excel and PowerPoint and OneNote, etc., can all be brought inside of Teams. And again, I'm going to demonstrate how that works a little bit later. And then we can bring in our third-party apps as well. So these are education-focused apps, but we've got a lot of things that are outside of the education sphere that you can use as well. So you can bring in your YouTube, your Wikipedia, your Kahoot, your Quizlet and other tools like that. And then when we're working with students, which again, back to our first webinar, we can also be using our assignments features. So it's free. Teams is free for educators, but the department has got a higher level of subscription. So whilst it's free to you as a teacher and free to you as a school, it has been paid for by the TAS DoE. But it provides a consistent experience across devices. So if you're coming in on a desktop device, whether you're coming in on a PC or a Mac or a Linux machine, there's a dedicated app that you can download, and I'll share that link with you a little bit later. And that's where you're going to get your most comprehensive experience, okay? So things tend to work better in the app. It's just a little bit faster than it is in some of these other avenues. You can get it for your tablet device, whether you're on an Android tablet device or whether you're on an iPad, you can experience Teams with a dedicated client there. And also you can access it on your phone, whether that you're on an Android phone or you're on an iOS iPhone. I use it, I have an iPhone, I use Teams on my iPhone all the time, just because of that convenience and being on the move, being able to take calls, video calls on the move, etc. You know, audio calls through the through the car, when I'm using my 5G and all that kind of stuff. So it really is quite cool. So don't just think of it as a desktop app. Please see the potential of how you can use this to collaborate with your colleagues through some of these mobile devices. And there is the browser apps as well. So whether you're on Edge, Chrome, Safari, even our good friends over at Firefox, you can still experience that through the browser. But the best experience is going to be those dedicated apps. Now you can download that at aka.ms/getteams, aka.ms/getteams. And remember, once you download the app, sign in with your TAS DoE email address and usual password, and that will connect you to the network. Okay, so let's have a look here. This is Teams, and this is what it looks like from the browser and also from the app. I'm going to take you, instead of talking to a photograph, I'm going to take you in and show you a team. So when I'm here inside the browser, now the reason I'm having to demo to you guys in the browser is because I'm actually presenting through the client. So you can have them both open at the same time, which is fine. But I would click on the Teams button. Okay, and when I click on the Teams button, it's going to open Teams for me. So here I am in Teams. Now the cool thing about Teams is you've got the ability to do numerous things according to these tabs down the side here. So the first thing I've got is I've got my activity tab. Now, those of you that are on social media, you're going to know this really well. It's your notifications on Facebook and your notifications on Twitter and those kinds of things, and Instagram. I don't use Instagram. I think I'm a bit too old for it, but I hear all the young people are just wild about it. But it's the notifications, all right? So when something happens inside Teams, I get a notification right up here. You've also got the ability to have private chats. Okay, it's teacher to teacher, no problem at all. I can see all my teams, and you can see all my teams over here. Okay, these are all the teams that I'm a member of, but we'll explore those a little bit later. We've got the assignments feature, so that's when we're using this with our students. I've got my calendar app, so I can schedule things. And you can see here, I've also got the ability to make calls, okay, voice calls. And then I've also got my personal OneDrive space that lives in here as well. So when I click on that, you'll see there's my personal OneDrive, and there's all my Microsoft Teams shared files as well. All right, so pretty cool. Now, if I come back over here and I jump into one of my, actually, before I jump into the team and tell you all about the cool things that you can do with the tabs across the top, I think it's better that I actually show you how to create your school team first. So creating our school team, when we create a team in an education tenant, all right, so we're in a Microsoft space as a school, we actually get the ability to create 4 different kinds of teams. All right, now for what I'm showing you today, whilst there is in fact a staff team, you can see here, even though I'm going to tell you how to create a staff team, I actually want you to think about creating it over here in the other. The reason why is staff team actually sets up a staff OneNote notebook, which is probably not going to be something that most of you are going to use. So if you do set it up over here in staff, that's fine. You'll just get a staff notebook set up. But my suggestion to you is actually create your team as other. All right. So you do have a choice. OK, but I think the key, and hopefully this will become sort of more apparent to you, the key is to make sure that you create it as other. So collaboration is one excellent way that Microsoft Teams can save your school staff and your faculty time and effort, right? And you can get everything happening in terms of academic departments to work together in one environment. Microsoft Teams can support up to 5,000 members in each team. Okay, so remembering that, I'm sure your school staff is a little bit smaller than that, but nevertheless, it's there. Everything's possible within Teams. We can communicate effectively through conversations, chats, online meetings, calls, and web conferencing. You can work collaboratively in a OneNote notebook if you set it up as a staff team. Okay, if you don't, it's okay, you can bring a notebook in later. But you get your Office 365 apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other files in there as well, and you get to customize your workspace with Microsoft and third-party apps, which is what we talked about a little bit before. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the teams and the structure and purpose of those teams. So the first thing I would suggest that you create is what's called an all-staff team. okay? And that's going to provide a central place for all staff to communicate and collaborate. It's going to provide a location for secure, I want to really stress that, secure file storage and sharing. And it's going to give you channels to focus on different domains of interest. And we'll have a look at all that when we jump in a moment. Second kind of team that I think you're probably going to want to set up is what we call a leadership team, okay? Now it's going to provide a central place for all the leadership, right, the different levels of leadership in your school to communicate and collaborate. It's going to provide a separate location to the all staff team for sensitive file storage and sharing, okay? Just as secure, but it's away from the majority of the staff. And then you can also have private channels to ensure confidentiality for specific topics. And then the last kind of team that you're probably going to create here is what's called the class team. And that's going to provide a central place for personalised teaching and learning. It's going to provide a location for curriculum resources, learning engagements and assessments. Now, that was really what we talked about in our first PD in our first webinar. So please go back and have a look at that. Now, I want to stop for a moment because I forgot to mention that really what we're looking at here in those three is this is what it's going to look like from a primary setting. Okay, so this is a primary team that we're actually exploring. High schools will probably have another kind of team and it will sit, or not just one, but many kinds, that it's probably going to sit inside here, all right? And that's going to be your dedicated faculty teams. So whereas a primary school can get away with having all staff, leadership and classes, a high school is going to need all staff, leadership, faculty teams and classes. So one team for English, one team for humanities, one team for science, etc. Okay, you're probably going to have those subject domains, and you may even find you need to go a little bit deeper, and you may have, you know, year 11 and 12 will have their own team, whereas 7 to 10 will have their own team in science, for example, etc. So just be open to that idea. Those of you that have come from secondary, but those of you in a primary setting, my advice to you is these three teams. Now, that being said, there is no right and wrong way. You really need to, as a school, look at what's going to work for you, how your school works together, how they do business together, how they communicate, etc. But it's a really good opportunity for you to actually influence that a little bit by pressing in with a little bit of education philosophy. If you make it too pie in the sky, too much about philosophy in the way you think they should work, school educators, teachers will not use the team. But it's also an opportunity, as I said, to sort of influence them a little bit. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you, really important, is the fact that this is all built on the Microsoft 365 stack. So you've got groups, SharePoint, OneNote, OneDrive, Stream, Planner, etc. That's all built into to Teams, but it's cloud-based. So we're able to access this anywhere on any device. And when we think about enterprise security and compliance, we know that the DoE has got things like Azure AD set up, SharePoint security retention policies, etc. These things are all in place for you sitting on the Microsoft graph. So you know that it's secure and you know that you're going to be compliant. Now, another thing I want to point out is, why does this all matter? Well, in a sort of lockdown, in a health restriction kind of environment, we're not all able to be in the same place anymore. So once upon a time, you might have had a Q drive or a P drive or an L drive, whatever you called your shared drive, even possibly a number of them. But a lot of those are actually tied to premise and don't have remote access. So you think about it, that you're probably experiencing it now, that you're back at home, you're starting to run classes or wanting to collaborate with, and where are all your files? All those shared files are not accessible. So what we're suggesting is, it's going to take a little bit of work to set this up, but when you set this up, you'll be able to move your shared drive into the cloud and you'll be able to access those files, anytime, anywhere. All right. First thing I want to talk to you about, though, is channels. And actually, before I jump in and show you channels, I did forget, I want to take you in, I want to show you what the staff of Murray Street actually looks like. Okay, so when I come into Teams, here's all my, I told you before, my activity, my chat, etc., all these tabs, but I've got these tabs across the top. We're going to dive in and have a look at these a little bit later, but I've got my posts, the ability to have chat, I've got my files, the ability to store my files. I've brought my LMS in here, so this for you might be Canvas. You can bring your LMS in. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And you can see here I've got a duty schedule as well. Now I've got a whole series of channels down here. Okay, so the general channel is the main channel. You can't rename it, you can't change it. But what I've done is I've actually built this demo team with all these different domains that are relevant to primary schools that I've actually worked in. So yours may look different. Okay, yours may look quite different, or you may look at this and use this as a template. But I want to talk about the way these channels work. I want you to think of them as places for large bodies of work or specific needs or topics. So have a look here. I've got things like facilities and grounds. I've got professional learning teams that happen inside the primary school. I've got professional learning. That's where, you know, teachers learn. I've got a specialist space, which is, you know, for our art teachers, music teachers, etc. And we've got grade level teachers spaces as well. So these grade level teams. So each team, as I said, starts with a general channel. Every channel comes with its own conversations, files, and when we come in, for example, that's the general channel. If I come in here to say, let's go into year 6, okay, you can see there again, we've got posts, files, and then I've brought all these other tabs in as well. All right, when you work with channels, you can easily add more channels to your team as needed. You click on the ellipses next to the team name, okay, and then you will add a channel, okay, and you can then just change that name, etc. Notice that your additional channel, as I said, automatically comes with conversations and files, etc. But you can add more of the tabs to it. All right, so it's the channels are a great way to keep individual team, or excuse me, I should say individual groups in your school to keep their work and their other things sort of separate and away from other departments. So everyone who wants to come into a channel can actually see everything that's going on, and they can weigh on important decisions, and they have visibility and the ability to contribute. So for example, if I was down here in the grade 6 channel, you can see here they're starting to talk with one another, they've got their files, etc. Now when you're working in a team, the list of channels is going to grow over time, or there may be channels that you use less often. So hiding and showing channels allows you to retain the information and recall the channel that's needed for work. So for example, I might be a grade 6 teacher, and I may not be so, I may not find what's going on in year 1 too important to me. So what I can do is I hover over the channel and I click on these the ellipses here, and I can hide that channel. And what I would do as a year 6 teacher is I would go through and hide all the channels that are irrelevant to me, but I would, or not so relevant to me, and then I can show all the channels that are relevant to me. So that way, even though there's 16, 17 channels there, I as a teacher may only want to see 4 or 5 of those channels and not be overwhelmed, okay? So you have the ability to be able to show and hide channels, and that's really important to do. All right, let's keep moving. Now, when we've got these channels, I just want to show you, this is what we've done for this demo team called Murray Street Primary. You can see here that we've got all those domains that we've set up, and then we've also made sure that we've got our year level, okay? Now, when you are in secondary, you're probably going to take those year levels will not be in your whole staff team, and you will have dedicated teams, perhaps for year levels, but more likely for your academic domains, all right, for your subject domains. Now, what I've got here for you, and you can grab these slides afterwards, we'll make them available to you, but I just want to show you that each channel has a purpose. So when we were planning this, we thought about what are the channels we want and what purposes will they serve. If you set up a channel and it doesn't really have a purpose, then by all means, don't create that channel. Now, leadership is a little bit different. Now, I just want to show you what we've done with leadership before I come in and talk about the purpose. Let me just jump out here and come into the leadership team. So the leadership team, you can see here, this is basically for leaders, receptionists, secretaries, personal assistants, business managers, the people that basically work in the office of the school, assistant principals, those kinds of people. All right. Now you can see there that we've got things like, and again, this is just a suggestion to you. We've got a facilities channel, we've got finance, human resources, etc. You can see I've got little locks next to them. If it doesn't have a lock, then that means that those channels are accessible to everybody who's a member of the team. But if it does have a lock, it means that only the people who are invited to that team are able to access. So when you think about it, maybe it's not really, you know, the receptionist or the principal's assistant needs to be getting into people's human resources files, but maybe the business manager, the principal, the AP, they do. So it's still there in that team, but we've actually locked it so that people can't get into files that aren't necessarily relevant to them. Let me show you. Here's some of the purpose, right? So you can see here again, and I stress that I'm going to make these slides available to you, but you can actually build what purposes do we want these channels for? And you have to think about your school, right? And set that up your way. So when we're coming in as a principal, right? So we have this principal here. When she comes in, she's a member of the all staff team, but look what she's done. She's hidden most of those channels, right? She's only wanting to keep the ones that are directly relevant to her visible. Now, remembering all those hidden channels that we had down here, she can still access them. So she can still go in and see what year one are doing and leave messages and all that kind of thing, but she's just going to make the channels that are relevant to her visible to herself. When she's in the leadership, we'll look at that. She's seeing everything, right? Because she needs to oversee that entire leadership team. And then she's not following any class teams at all because she's not a teacher. All right, so that's what it looks like. So again, that's that slide for you. So for our principal, she's going to see when she comes into the staff of Murray Street, she sees all these channels, but her hidden channels are still there for her to access. Now let's talk about posts. Okay, so posts is where we do our chat. All right, so I'm going to bring us back, and you can see there I've got the year 6 one already on the slide there, but I'm going to bring us back into staff of Murray Street, bring us into year 6. I want to show you what these chats look like. So you can see there that Josh teacher has been having a chat with ADA. I'm hoping that you guys can actually see that. Maybe I should make it a little bit bigger. All right, so the post tab in Teams appears in the general channel as well as any additional channels that you create, and all members can view or add to the conversations in these channels as long as they're not locked. So in other channels, we can use the @mention feature to invite specific staff to participate in conversation. So you can see what's happened down here is that as Josh and Adi were talking, they wanted to draw John App's attention. So while they were chatting, what they do is they just, if you can see my screen, they just hit the @mention button, start to type the name, and then they just click on it. And now what will happen is Josh will get a notification when that message is posted. So that's how we draw people's attention. So any member wants to begin a conversation in the channel designated for their grade level or group, rather than sending emails to multiple people and receiving multiple responses and worrying about whether all the necessary parties were included, the member simply begins a conversation in the channel where the work is actually occurring. Now, everyone who should see it and weigh in on the important decision has visibility and the ability to continue. Okay, so that's what we do there in terms of our chat. So if I wanted to chat, I would just start typing down the bottom here, and then it would appear here. So you can see here that Josh and Adi were actually talking about one of the students. Okay, so this is only a staff channel, so no parents or students are able to see. But if they really wanted to go to another level of privacy, they could come up here and start a private chat. All right, so that's how we would use the idea of posts. Now, files for all your documents. So this is where you bring your shared drive into the cloud, all right, or bring your shared drive into the second decade of this 21st century. So I'm going to come up here and click on files. So here we are in the year 16. Look at this. It looks just like your shared drive, okay, except all my files are here for year 6. Okay, so instead of having to go into a P drive or a Q drive and then drill down to grade 6 or whatever, I can just go into the grade 6 channel or into the grade 5 channel. Excuse me, I'll just get rid of that. Into the grade 5 channel. And again, when I go into the grade 5 channel, there's all our files in there as well. All right, so I can be accessing my files. I can be accessing my files directly from those spaces. All right, so when we have our files, we have the ability to have directories, and we can create subdirectories, etc. We come up here to the new tab. You see I can create Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, forms, etc., all inside Teams, and they will be created inside this space. I can also create folders, as I said, and subdirectories. So what it means is, instead of having a file that lives on my private OneDrive space or on my private machine, when I create it in here, it will automatically live in here, and everybody that's a member of this team, as long as they're not locked out, will actually have access to that. Okay, so I can also upload stuff from my existing machine, from my OneDrive space, or from my existing device. Okay, I also have the ability to add cloud storage, so I can bring in existing SharePoint sites. So if your school already has a SharePoint site, you can bring that into Teams. You don't have to choose one or the other. Now, when I create my Word document inside this space, so let's just say I'm here in planning documents. Actually, I'm going to take us into grade 6. There's a little bit more there. And take us into grade 6. Let's say I'm here in curriculum. Hopefully that's going to load for us. Okay, and let's say that I'm going to create a document. I want it to be inside science. So what I do is I click on new. It's going to be a Word document in this case, and I'm going to call this term for biology. Okay, so my little grade 6s are doing some biology and science. Click on the create, and then that document is actually accessible right from inside Teams, and the ability to collaborate, meaning that everybody can be on the same document at the same time and be seeing what each other are doing. And now when I close that document, you have a look. That document is now living inside Year 6 Curriculum Science, and anyone can access that. And as I said, we can be on it at the same time. We don't need to share it because everybody's already got access. All right, the next thing I want to share with you is about bringing tabs into your Teams. So coming back here into our grade 6 space, you can see up here, we've got a little plus. All right, so here I am in my grade 6 channel. When I click on the plus, look what happens. I have all these Microsoft apps that I'm able to add, okay? And I also have third-party apps that I'm able to bring in as well. Now, you'll find, you know, I'll give you some time to go through and play, but you can see there's things like Turnitin and a whole heap of really good education-related apps. But one in particular I want to show you is this one here, website. So when I click on website, anything that has a web portal or a dedicated website can be added as a tab, and that includes Canvas. So you can bring your relevant Canvas pages into the team. So things that are relevant to Year 6, things that are relevant to the whole school can live in those individual channels. But all I do is I rename that, I paste my link, okay, and then I would click save. But I want to show you what we've done here. So I've got, for example, this is Compass as an LMS, but obviously that could be Canvas. You can see here we've got curriculum documents, and we've also got planning documents and those kinds of things as well. So you can put those right across the top, whether they're Microsoft apps or third-party apps. Now, the other thing you want to think about is managing your team. Okay, so once we've created the team, then we want to be able to play around with our settings. So I'm going to again take us back out. I'm going to take us over here. Now I want to show you where to find that. I click on the ellipses and then I click on Manage Team. All right, now there's a whole heap of options down here. You can do a lot of things inside here, but if we come up here to manage, it's much easier for us to see everything all in the one place. So the team owners, okay, whoever they are, they have control over these member permissions. Member permissions are easy to change or amend at any time by checking or unchecking the box next to each member permission. So when I click on settings over here, you can see here I've got member permissions, and I just encourage you to go in and have a bit of a look around what you can actually turn on and off, because that's also going to show you what you can actually do inside Teams. All right, so the owner has the ability to make these changes to benefit a smoothly running team. So you may not want the members, the rest of the school, to be able to, or teachers to be able to create channels, etc. You may set a structure, you know, so go in and have a look at that. All right, now the other thing we've got is we've got the members tab here. Okay, and the members tab is going to show me who are members of my team, and I can also be adding members straight from here as well. I can add members from over here, as you see, but I can be doing it in here. If it's a private team, which it should be, and people want to join, if you get requests, they will come in here. I can also play around with my channels. I can rename my channels. I can make them, I can show them or hide them, etc. Please remember that you cannot make a private channel public and a public channel private. You have to decide that when you create the channel. But coming back into settings, I showed you here, you've got your member permissions, okay, but you've also got the ability to turn the @mention feature on and off for different people in the team. You have the ability to create a team code, which means you can share that code out and people can add that when they start teams, and then they will actually be brought straight into the team, so you don't have to add everyone individually. We've got all that fun stuff that's going on in there as well. Excuse me. Got all that fun stuff going on in there. Whoop. As well, so you've got the ability to play around with Giphies and whether you, and your stickers and your memes and set filters and all those kinds of things in there as well. There's some basic analytics to show you what's been going on in your team, and of course the apps, which we looked at a little bit earlier. All right, so again, in the general channel, the owner can allow and restrict anyone from posting messages, showing alerts and all that kind of thing, so you can really dial back that experience, or you can open it up to people depending on where you want to go with it. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is notifications. Notifications is really key, because if you don't set the notifications properly, it gets annoying really quickly. But not only that, there can be a lot of white noise, and then people will actually stop paying attention, and at worst even stop using the team. So I want to show you how to set your notifications. It is up to you as an individual to set your own notifications. Okay, there are some basic group policies that can be rolled out to everybody, but they are really quite limited. So the best thing to do is to actually teach your teachers how to set notifications for themselves. So what you do is when you come up here into Teams, you click on your little account icon up here, right? And you can see here, I've got a few things that I'm able to do, but what we want to do is we want to go into settings. Okay, now when we're in settings, before I show you your notifications, you can set your theme, you can set your layout, and you can also change your language. I do suggest that you change this from English United States to English Australia, so that you've got the spell check and all those kinds of things happening. And also if you start to use narrator, she'll speak to you with an Australian accent. But over here in notifications, you can see here, I've got my notification settings. Now, different features have different notification levels. So for example, you can see here that if I get a personal mention, what do I want? Do I want a banner? And a banner will just come straight across here on the screen and then vanish again. Do I want a banner and email, meaning that I will get a notification by email, or do I only want it to show in the feed that is my notification? All right. Now, I tell you now, the emails are going to get very, very laborious and very annoying very quick. So my suggestion to you is just make sure that you at least get rid of the email response. My personal preference is I just get everything shown in the feed. So I would just bring all these down to the minimum, right? So you can see here that something like banner doesn't give me an only show in feed. Excuse me, chat messages doesn't give me an only show in feed. I have to, the lowest I can choose is banner or turn it off. All right, but I dial these back as much as I can. Now the missed activity emails, this is key, because what happens is when people come into Teams for the first time, sometimes this is set really high, and so they start getting emails every time someone does something in Teams, or once every 10 minutes, or once every hour, once every 8 hours. So I personally set this to off. I don't need it anymore, but it might be good to get a daily email reminding you of all the things that you missed in Teams that day, especially when you're brand new to Teams. So again, how do we change those settings? When we're in Teams, we click on our little account icon, we come over here to settings, and then we go over here to notifications and we set them. It's really good to explain this to your staff, because they might set it one way, 2 days later they're going to think that doesn't work for me, and they need to be able to change it. If they can't change it, they'll get annoyed, and they may in fact disable Teams, and that's the last thing you want them to do. So we want to minimize unnecessary noise and distraction. We want to make sure that the notifications that we're getting are relevant to us. Now, I want to make another point. If you show a channel, okay, then you will get the notifications. If you hide a channel, it turns all the notifications off, okay? But you can, whether it's hidden or shown, you can set notifications specific to that channel. So what I did was I came over here to these ellipses. I came down here to, oh, excuse me, wrong ellipses. I come over here to these ellipses. I come here to channel notifications, and I can set those specific to that channel. So over here, notifications right across the team. Over here, notifications specific to that channel, but settings are going to be personal. All right. Now, we did in our first webinar talk about the video that you can have, the video meetings, etc. It was before only 2x2, so 4 people to a screen. We've just rolled out 3x3, so you can have 9 people on a screen at once, but all your other people will actually be listed across the bottom down here. Okay, so you can have 250 people in a video chat at one time. When someone speaks, they will come into view. Okay, if they don't make any noise, they'll probably stay down the bottom as one of these little dots. All right, but the most recent speaker will move into view. But you can meet on any device, so you don't have to be on a PC. You can be on an iPad or a phone or something like that as well. I will often be on Teams calls when I'm driving. Obviously, I turn the video off; they just become audio. But you can do it through your phone, so you're able to. You know, once upon a time you would have missed meetings, but if your team are together and you're on the road, you can dial in. But for you guys being remote at the moment, this is the perfect way to have your whole school meetings, your team, your year level team meetings, etc. I'll just share a couple of things. You can mute and change people's status inside the calls. You can share your screen. So if you've got a PowerPoint presentation, like exactly what I'm doing for you guys now, you're seeing my PowerPoint presentation, or I can tab across and show you what's going on my screen. That can all be happening inside your Teams calls. So you're actually experiencing that right now. Okay. Yeah, and also you can record. So it's important to note that you can record. So when you record a meeting, it will be automatically dropped into Microsoft Stream. It's automatically uploaded to the channel that you're meeting in. There's automatic closed captions that are built in, and there's also a searchable transcript for you. Okay, so it's stored in Stream. I'll just show you really quickly where Stream lives. So when you're in Microsoft Office, if you don't see Stream, just click on All Apps, and you'll see Stream is here. So that's your video housing and storage place inside Office 365. All right. How are we going for time? All right, we're doing okay. So next steps. Remember, check out education.microsoft.com and look up that higher ed course. Okay, support.office.com/Teams. This is your go-to place for any information that you need to know about Teams. How do I do this? How do I do that? Where does that live, etc. You can type your questions in and the bot will actually find those articles for you, or you can browse by high-level topic. I want you to remember you can get the recordings from aka.ms/TroyYT. So not just today's recording, but also our previous recordings as well. So that's aka.ms/TroyYT. Again, there's our aka.ms Microsoft Remote Learning. Please remember that there is a question and answer point on that website. So if you do have questions, there's real people on the end of that and they'll answer your questions for you. That's us on Twitter. And also if you're looking for broader support documents, you can find those at support.microsoft.com. aka.ms/Mech newsletter is Microsoft's newsletter. And last but not least, if you want to stay connected to me through any of these platforms, you can see there, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. This is my professional accounts. I push out the latest, greatest stuff that I find around Microsoft and education in general, etc. So please feel free to add me or follow me. And you'll know when you find me on LinkedIn, just go looking for Troy Waller, same on Facebook. And if you're looking, you'll know it's me because you'll see this little icon here. That's my avatar for all of them. So what I might do is I might just throw to Ian and just see if there's any burning questions, Ian, that anyone's been asking that maybe we can try and answer.
Thanks, Chris. Troy, bit of feedback there. Just from our friend Christopher, and who said this is great, but he really picked up on the less teams, more channels kind of concept.
Yeah, that's right. So that's my personal philosophy. I think we should have less teams, more channels, because we can keep everybody in those just few different spaces. But remembering, because we have so many channels that we could be overwhelmed, the ability to hide channels really makes that a lot easier for us. When I work at Microsoft's a very big organization, and I am a member of multiple teams, too many teams, and there's just so many teams that I don't visit, even though I am actually a member of them and they're somehow relevant to me. So it's just come from my own experience. There's no necessary right and wrong here. You may find that you've got a number of teams that you need, and more than I've actually demoed here today. That's fine, right? But my rule of thumb is we only break away and start another team if we absolutely have to. Otherwise, we try and keep it as a channel.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, that's certainly what we're seeing as well, Troy, in the department, and keeping them in the sort of the lower number of teams sort of helps with transparency as well, and the ability to be able to find information that that may have previously been hidden. So, but no, that's all good. And just a pick up there on the private channels as well. So I responded to that one. So private channels, as you said, Troy, certainly do have a purpose, but I think they have a slightly different functionality than a normal channel, and
definitely.
Our experience there is it can be tricky to manage because you're adding in sort of people to have access to the private channels. So probably only use when you have a specific purpose. Again, as Troy mentioned during the presentation.
Yeah, exactly right. You can't schedule Teams meetings, video calls inside a private channel. You can hold a meeting, but you can't schedule it. And the other thing is you can't record it. So if you've got numerous private channels inside a team, and you're thinking, I would at that point I'd be looking at, do we need individual teams to keep that sort of level of privacy rather than private channels. But that's really for schools to decide for themselves.
That's right. Yeah. So, and that's really where the power of Teams comes in. I think the the notifications and the hiding of the information that well, not hiding, but what's the word, Troy? Yeah, it is hiding, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hiding the information. Yeah, hiding the information that's not that you don't need to know, and really channeling in on the notifications that you do. I think it's really powerful in that space.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. So, Ian, how would schools go about if they wanted to, find out more about setting up their own team? Because it's a bit of a mammoth task to setting up, school teams and, being able to copy at least some of their important files from their shared drive. How would they reach out to you guys?
Yeah. So I think my name, I'm Ian Ackley in the South. I work with ITS. Sorry for the lack of introduction there. But Chris Laycock is my colleague in the North, and we were certainly planning on, working on a really nice plan to help roll out Teams over a certain period of time, which recent events have kind of fast-tracked that. But certainly reach out to Chris and myself in the short term, and we'll do our best to help you out there, and help with some of the things that Troy's talked about today.
Excellent. Yeah, great. Okay, lovely. And if you do have trouble locating those gentlemen, please reach out to me through social media, and I'll make sure that I connect you to them. But I'm sure you'll find them easily in your Active Directory in your email. All right, so that's it from us. We really appreciate you being here. As I said, this was, I think, what did we say, number 6? We've still got another 2 more to go. I've got another inclusive classroom one coming up and other bits and pieces as well. But please remember, if you want to visit our previous webinars, then pop back. I'll just throw the slide up for you. Pop back here to aka.ms/TroyYT. All right, that's it from us. And thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy your day.